Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our channel. And I hope you've been enjoying our previous podcasts, and I hope you'll enjoy this one too. And we're here at the Roladine Cafe in Naharia, and very recommended. And beautiful town, beautiful restaurants and coffee shops and beach. And I hope you're making Aliyah to us soon. We're missing you here. And Rachelle and I have been discussing many issues this morning, and we want to share them with you. And we'll start first from Rochelle's aha moment today.
Okay, today my aha moment was that I realized that I'm really, I think that I'm helping people and I'm there for them. And I realized that what I'm not doing is putting myself in their shoes and feeling what it is they're feeling by how I'm reacting. I'm seeing the world through my eyes and forgetting that what is this person in front of me going to feel. So what I was talking about prayer, that I don't even think about the fact that people love to hear that they're being prayed for. Like, I just think that it's not that important or whatever, or it's just important to me. And I realized, wow, if I knew that somebody else was praying for me, I would love that. It would give me comfort to know that. And then I realized that by putting myself in somebody else's shoes, I can be aware that they would find comfort in it as well. So, like, I realized I need to bring myself up to the next level in terms of giving. Instead of just seeing it from myself and my point of view, how is it being received? Does the other person need to hear this now? Will this give another person comfort? And so you continued on that vein, and we started discussing how it is that you give to people and how you decide how you're going to give to people and how you put yourself in other people's shoes. So that was my haha moment.
So I think that, it always starts from um, most of us won't start with thinking, how can I become an altruistic human being, right?
Mm.
And so I think it connects very strongly to pain.
Mm.
We know both in Kabbalah and in modern psychology that the two things that make the world run around, right, is the pursuit of pleasure and the running away from pain. So nobody wants to work hard or, um, um, but deep, deep, deep inside my soul, we feel that we feel a lack. So we think that lack is everything I'm lacking in life.
Mm.
If I only move there, if I only marry that one, if I only do this, if I only do that, if I get that job, that career, that amount of money, that kind of pleasure, that kind of trip, then I would feel good. But if we listen deeply, deeply to our soul, then we understand that what we're really missing is something so much deeper. We're missing God's whisper in our ear. We're longing for God's whisper in our ear. What really is the deepest source of my soul? What is it that I'm really, really yearning for? I'm yearning for God to tell me exactly what it is that I came to do in this world.
Yeah, yeah.
And we think that that message is very, very far away. So we also run to this psychologist, that psychologist, this psychiatrist,
This meditative
this
retreat. Oh, wow.
and this Kabbalist, that Kabbalist, this spiritual teacher, that spiritual teacher. And but God's voice is right here, and I can tune into it. and I can hear God's message. But first, I need to be ready to hear what I don't want to hear.
So you're going to have to step outside of your comfort zone.
Right. And I think that one of the biggest things that came up this today in our conversation was that we understand that the mitzvot, God's commandments, are not just to make us into robots or obedient, or they're to make they're to make the fine tuning in my ears. So when I fine tune,
So we can hear more clearly?
yeah.
Wow.
So when we fine tune this, I want to turn on the light on Shabbat, whatever. Anybody gonna die for me turning on the light on Shabbat? No. I'm gonna turn on my phone on Shabbat, which will probably create much more noise in my life, right? Also, the distraction of whether I'm gonna keep Shabbat or not is also just of itself, even without doing the action, just the thinking, do I want to have this kind of Shabbat or that kind of Shabbat? Do I want to have the quiet Shabbat where I don't think about anything, not about what I'm going to eat, not about what I'm going to do? The options are very limited. I'm going to either have a meal, read a book, or go to the beach, or sleep, or daven, right?
Yep.
Those are pretty much the options
That's all right.
if you have a quiet Shabbat,
Yeah.
right? Not like the other days, am I going to watch this movie, the news, the this, the that, call this friend, go out, run here, run there. It's like, it makes life so quiet, you don't go anywhere, you don't do anything, just you and Hashem. So, so it's like, again, I'll try to focus it. If I, we said if I turn on the switch on Shabbat of something, is it going to kill anybody? Is anybody going to die from it? Am I going to die from it? No. But I choose to have that quiet Shabbat in my life. And I train my soul that way that um, that I hear somebody else's request and disregarding my own desire at that moment. So it it teaches me to disregard my own desire.
Like also, if you decide to host other people and introduce
Also,
other people to the Shabbat and maybe compromise some of your comfort so that someone else can experience Shabbat, isn't that like another level?
yes, it's another thing because it's just another mitzvah.
Right.
The mitzvah of opening your door to others is it's not just another mitzvah, it's actually one of the biggest ones, right?
Right.
But it's just another mitzvah that trains me to do not what's right for me, but what's right for the well-being of this whole planet.
Right.
So when I hear God's request, please open your heart to somebody else.
Yeah.
That's already a harder one. But
Yes.
right, but when for some people maybe it's easier than not to turn on the light. I don't
Yeah.
know, right? But whatever it is that you're doing that is stepping out of your comfort zone,
Mm-hmm.
that is hearing God's saying,
Mm-hmm.
please do something else for someone else.
Yeah.
Please do something for someone else.
Yeah.
It prepares our soul and our ears to hear God's message also for us. So we don't have to chase after all these Kabbalists or whoever, spiritual insiders, to tell us, what's, is that the right person for me? Is that the right job for me? Is that the right this for me? Is that the right? Because I'm learning to listen to the depth of my soul and not just the outer layers of like, this is what's right for me this second.
Wow. It's like a muscle. You're exercising that
Yes.
muscle and it gets easier.
Yes. Yeah. So the more like the first time you lift up half a kilo, right? the next you the next day you lift, or whatever, the next week you lift a kilo, the following you you go on to two, and etc., right? You get stronger and stronger in your bodybuilding, right?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
get stronger and stronger in your soul building too. The more you're able to overcome your momentary desires and comfort, the more your soul is stronger. But when we talk about it in emotional sense, we talk about it in spiritual sense, we talk about it in the sense of how do we hear God's voice. We hear God's voice when we learn to listen to the depth of our soul, where we're all connected. So there are a million examples we can give with that, like, so you're saying, like, for example, how does Shabbat connect to that, for example, right? So a simple example that jumps into my head now, right, is for example, when um, when you want to have a society that is more filled with Shabbat, right? You can't do it around the world, because around the world is around the world. But here in Israel, I remember coming out from the becoming a young adult and wanting to work in a hotel reception desk, right? And I was already keeping Shabbat, and I didn't want to work on Shabbat. I came and I said, I only work during the weekdays. They said, there's no such thing here. You have to take whatever every other Shabbat. So I'm like, but there are people who love to work on Shabbat, and they want the extra money that is being paid on Shabbat. And then there are people who don't want to work on Shabbat. Why can't we create a society where there's true freedom of choice for everybody,
Right.
right? But apparently we can't, because people want some kind of equality in their um, um,
Responsibilities.
responsibilities, right?
Yeah.
So, so then we're basically creating a situation where, I'm not talking now about hospitals or
Yeah.
police forces or stuff
Yeah.
like that, where people have to obviously,
Yeah.
and there's no problem with that, with Shabbat and whatever. But when it comes to where everybody's working, stores and buses and hotels and waitresses, etc.,
Restaurants.
if we create a society
Yeah.
where everybody's supposed to share their work responsibilities 7 days a week, we become a slave society, a slave to our work. One of the biggest gifts that Judaism had given the world is a day of freedom, a day of rest. It doesn't matter if it's Sunday or Friday, or for Islam it's Friday, for Christians it's Sunday, for us it's Shabbat. And so where it's legal, legislation, then it works fine, right? It's like, it's obvious that you don't want to work on Sunday, it's fine.
Yeah.
But here in Israel, for some people, it's not that understandable
Right.
why Shabbat shouldn't be a day of freedom for whoever chooses to. So it could create we could go back in time to a time of slavery within our society. So we're not accommodating for everybody. Now we want to accommodate to a unanimous kind of a society where where we're one. That's what creates us as a nation. That's what creates us as a one people.
Right.
And so if we want to accommodate to that, we need to understand that there are certain rules that we need to hold on. So
I uh, I worked in the retail industry. There was one store that if you did not want to work on Shabbos, they were okay with it. They'd find somebody else that could work on Shabbos.
right,
I traveled like 45 minutes to an hour out of my way so I could go there and be treated with respect. You can't work on Shabbos? That's okay. We'll get
right,
somebody else to do it.
right.
Why only one establishment? The place was packed. Everybody wanted to work there.
This was in America,
This was in America.
right? So here, obviously, we have and a lot of people are are buying into that. Like, a lot of people who would want to keep Shabbat,
Yeah.
but they're not giving the
Yeah.
fair opportunity.
Right. Yep.
So, okay, so now if we go back to other examples, um, wherever I want to, um, the God's name is Shalom, and Shalom is completeness. So what when is something complete? When
Mhm.
all its parts are in it. So God doesn't want you to be happier than me or me to be happier than you.
Yeah.
He wants both of us to be happy.
Right.
Now, when it comes to you and me, maybe it's easy because our interests are similar, maybe.
Right.
But what happens with people whose interests are less similar,
Right.
right? So we want to create a situation. Now, think about it, like in couples, in families, um, in left and right, religious and secular, wherever you look,
Hmm.
right? On individual levels or collective levels. You want to create a situation, God wants to create a situation where everybody's equally happy. That's shalom. Shalom is not just peace. We used to translate the word shalom as peace, but shalom comes from the word shlemut, which is completion. Completion is where all the pieces of the puzzle sit well together. So now you're asking, where do I have the strength to do what I do, put myself aside and do something for someone else?
Hmm.
By saying to myself,
Hmm.
if I want to connect to that word that is called shalom, completion, that energy
Hmm.
of the world of completion, I want to see your needs as equal to my needs. So my is maybe to rest, but I won't completely rest truly if your needs are not um, answered to. It won't be full rest. It's like a dissonance. It will create a dissonance in my soul. And shalom is really the opposite of the word dissonance. It's lack of dissonance. So when I tap into that energy
Right.
of, of lack of dissonance, of shalom,
Yeah.
then I also get to hear God's voice on what I need for my personal lives. And then I don't need anybody to tell me, do this, do that. This friend will tell you get divorced. That friend will tell you get married. That friend will tell you date this one. That friend will tell you date that one. I don't need them to tell me anything. I know because I hear God's voice for me.
So you think that I'm putting too much mental clutter in the way of hearing God's voice in terms of like forming relationships, being open to relationships, or look?
Only you know that.
I know. I guess I didn't think of it that way. I just thought it was like focusing on old baggage and taking,
That too.
old history and imposing it on the present or
But what's the
fear or
whole
whatever.
baggage? What's the old baggage? The old baggage is all the voices of God that I don't want to hear, all the mistakes that I made
Hmm.
that I don't want to listen to because it's too painful. Sometimes I think I can't correct them. But once, and you can do that even with people who've left the world. You can talk to them and you can say, I've done you wrong. And then you take the old baggage away.
Wow. Well, he told me he loved me still, but it's so ingrained, the tendency to take past experience and what happened in the past and superimpose it on the present. It's really difficult to
Right?
not.
Because we don't want to hear the true voice. We prefer to lie to ourselves, deceive ourselves with 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 um, different things that we tell ourselves to calm our conscience down.
Definitely.
Right? Once we dare not to calm our conscience down,
Hmm.
But to really say, Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazarnu, we've done wrong. I made this mistake. I made that mistake. I took a left turn here instead of a right turn. And, and once we're able to do that, then we open up our karmas again. Karma is not a very Jewish word, but we open up our path to continue on a clear road.
Does it give you more clarity in the present so that you can see things for what they are?
Of course, that is the thing, is to see things for what they are without deceiving ourselves. And
Feeling the desire to protect ourselves.
instead of feeling the desire to protect ourselves.
And also, I think that it's also Muna, knowing that you're in this place at this time with this person because God put you there for some purpose or another.
Yes,
And be willing to accept whatever it is you're supposed to be doing in that
right,
rather than running the other way.
right.
Right.
So that way, that allows you. That brings us to the
Like
next
what?
subject that we talked about is is not treating life with that awful seriousness. Is learning to treat life with so much more humor, like a game. You know, I go on a date. I don't go there completely emotionally invested, like I'm getting married tomorrow, right? So it allows me to to be there in a place where I'm not going to be so awfully disappointed. I can take life, I go out on a date. Here's a nice person. I'm just going to learn another thing about humanity. I'm going to have an interesting conversation, or maybe one that I can't get rid of fast enough, right? But I'm going to learn something else about life. I'm going to learn something else about people. And that will take me to the next stage. It's like every day, and I've been saying this for years, every day is like a short-term marriage, meaning that you're learning something in it. Maybe
It's
it will
true.
evolve into another few meetings. Maybe it
Yeah.
will evolve into a long-term relationship and even a wedding.
Mm.
But in this moment, it's a short-term marriage. It's a one-day marriage because it came to fix something in my understanding. That's all I'm taking it for. It came as part of my tikkun to allow something else into my understanding. And I will walk away from there and I'll either be like, what an awesome person, or I will be like, okay, what have I learned from this? Or both. But I will walk away from there with less of the feelings of like, oh my gosh, another one didn't work out.
Disappointment,
Right,
frustration,
right,
pain.
right. And that will give me strength to move on to the next date in a wiser manner that will allow me to look for the next person I will go out with more open eyes, to see already in advance who they are for what they are a little bit better so that I can understand what's right for me and invest less energies in the wrong directions.
Sounds good. Sounds good. But it's hard because it seems like as I've gotten older, certain things have become like almost calcified. It's like it's just so. It's like a wall. When we're younger, we're more hopeful and we have less baggage, obviously, and uh, we 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 don't take things as heavy, and it's different. When you get older, you just have so much more history, and more. It's more almost more to have more to discard. That you have to discard.
It's not more to discard, it's more to take into consideration.
Okay. Yes.
And the older you get,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, the older you get, you realize, you think, the older I get, the more I want to accomplish in life. So I want to move quicker.
Yeah.
But we already know,
Mhm.
we usually say it in relevance to driving, right? The faster you go, the more you're going to get into a car crash. It's true about life too,
Percentages.
right?
The
It's true about
percentages.
life too.
Yeah.
Be more mindful instead of running,
Yeah.
of catching so much. Life is not about catching. Life is not about, um, I'll have that trip or this trip, I'll marry this one or I won't marry that one,
Hmm.
or I'll stay married. That's not life. Life is about living in here and in here in a more truthful, integral, and peaceful manner. And every moment that I'm not living that way, I'm not living. Every moment that I'm achieving a little bit of more of living my life with integrity, peace, and truth, I'm living. No matter if I went somewhere, if I met someone, if I married someone, if I divorced someone, it doesn't matter what the background stage is. We're all here to go through the same emotions, to fix them, to learn to live with more integrity, with more peace, and with more truth through whatever story or screenplay that was written to us, or that we write, however you want to look at it, whether you want to believe that God wrote your story or you're writing it, it doesn't matter. Same thing.
Being true to your truth.
Yeah, being true to your truth, being integral with the people around you, and being in peace with whatever life throws at you, in true peace, knowing that every moment with its pain is the best thing that could have happened this moment.
And you've maintained your values and your integrity.
Right, right.
Okay.
That's life. We think life is, I'm going to accomplish more. But those are the only basically three things that we need to accomplish in this world.
And they're big.
And they're big, and I'm not talking about, like, you know, when we get to heaven, they're gonna say, 80 on integrity, 90 on whatever, peace. Um,
Oh.
but that's not the point. The point is how many moments, instead of thinking in the next, living in the next lifetime, or living in your grave, living in what's
I
going to
hope
be,
not. Buried alive ain't good.
living in the sense of the world to come, in the grave, in the world to come, like living as if we're, thinking all the time, I'm going to be in paradise, I'm going to be in hell. Because all the time, every minute that you're thinking, am I going to be in paradise or in hell, you're living in hell, right? But
Hmm.
every moment that you're thinking, am I making this moment a paradise moment? And a paradise moment is a moment of integrity, peace, and truth. So you're living in paradise here, and you're taking that paradise with you to the grave, to the Olam Haba. And then you're in heaven, Allah Haba, for sure.
I'm learning that if you're open to helping people with what your ability is, that Hashem brings people to you who need your advice or they need you to listen to what they have to say. And it's like I used to think of, like, here I am sitting in Rolodan for hours. Am I really accomplishing anything? But then, somebody will come in that will have a need or whatever. And I realized that that is what the day was about. It didn't matter whether I was here or if I was at the beach
Right.
or if I was in India. That this is, if you're able to bring some joy into someone else's life or help someone, that your life, you've lived a
It
day
was
that's
valued.
worthwhile.
Right, for sure. For sure.
It's incredible. And you don't
And
have
it
to
could
be
be
anywhere.
Roladina, or it could be on the street, like our friend, walks around and talks to all the homeless and
Alice.
all the cleaning crew of the city, and
Yeah.
listens to their problems. And we could do that too.
Yes.
A person goes by you and asks for tzedakah, and you don't only give them whatever you give them, but you also give them a smile, and you also ask them, who are you, where are you from? Maybe I can keep in touch with you and help you in a more substantial way.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So it's funny. I've always had the tendency of wanting to like travel, man, of wanting to travel, or feeling that if I was in a different place, that I would be able to whatever, you know, reach my solving my cocoon or whatever. That
Do me a favor, just to